Wait, is that right? Wait. Wait, is that? Wait. What a weekend. What a crazy weekend that was. Kind of surprising on how the entire weekend has gone out for the May Melee qualifiers. It was surprising from multiple teams, actually. We have Florida Mayhem coming in hot in this May Melee qualifiers. I mean, they surprised the heck out of everyone with their improvements with Rhine compositions. Like, OG has improved so much just in a week, going to his Winston, to his Reinhardt. The team all around, Gangnam Jin's looking top tier, like I've always wanted him to look. And then you have Slime also improving with Florida Mayhem. At start, it was rough, but I still think he was actually good. And he's just playing so much better this first, May Melee qualifiers, I guess you could say. And just all around, Florida Mayhem, what a team, coming in very hot, very surprising. Going against Toronto Defiant, which I thought was going to be a little bit closer from Toronto Defiant. Going over some of their improvements they could have had these past couple of weekends. And then you have Washington Justice. Everyone in my Discord was predicting that Washington would win. There's a few people believing in Florida. And what came out on top? Florida was dominating that game. A 3-0 against the Washington Justice. Justice looked like they were not ready for that aggression from Florida Mayhem. They looked like they were getting ready for the previous Florida Mayhem we saw before these May Melee games. So it was just a fantastic weekend for Florida Mayhem. Now, I do gotta say, Justice doing the work on a few things in the brawl composition, but other than that, I think Justice could still be a top tier team. But Florida Mayhem, they deserve it. They're going to the Melee, they're going to Hawaii, but I do think, though, they are not gonna make it that long, though. I think compared to the rest of the teams, they may pull out a fight against Shanghai. I would not be surprised if they did win against the Shanghai Dragons, though. I think that could be the possibility. Shanghai Dragons versus the Florida Mayhem. Florida Mayhem is looking very, very strong right now. And speaking on another team that's looking very strong right now is the Dallas Fuel. What a surprise of a weekend the Dallas had. After the previous weekends before this weekend happened, they look like they still look like a top team in the league. But after what we saw this weekend, going against the shock of the Houston Outlaws, they finally kept Fielder in, and this is the Fielder I think everyone has been wanting to see. Fielder no longer on ping, playing with the players in the facility, and we saw that he's starting full-time, I'm guessing now, after the 2 games against the Shock and the Houston Outlaws. This guy's bat play was crazy. His Ana play was crazy all weekend long. You can tell Fielder being in there made the Dallas feel a little bit more aggressive, and we could see that with multiple maps where Sparkle was running the Symmetra. They were running some crazy Symmetra strategies we've never seen before. We've never seen super aggressive plays with the portal in a hot minute. I know there's been few teams that have done it where they've been super aggressive with the teleporter, but Dallas was on another level, and it really reminds me of Blizzard World. Like, they were wanting to go against Houston so much, they're just teleporting. And I think they did the same thing with Shock too, just kept teleporting to them, They were not scared, they kept going in, very aggressive. Dallas Fuel all around. What a game from Sparkle, Fearless, Hanbin, everyone on that team performed at such a high level. Fearless being the main one, like that guy was crazy on all tanks all around, the positioning, his playmaking ability on the Winston and the Reinhardt. He brought out so many plays for the Dallas Fuel to execute on, and just, if it wasn't Fearless, I don't think they would have dominated as much as they did. You have Sparkle just improved so much during the offseason on his Symmetra and his Tracer play. And like I said in my first video, I think Sparkle can compete with the top 5 Tracers in the league. And y'all thought I said top 5. I said can compete. And he is competing with those top 5, and some people are already putting him in top 5 Tracers. So I'm just throwing that out there. And speaking more in Dallas Fuel, they 3-0'd the Shock and the Houston Outlaws. I expected more of a fight from Shock. I will say Houston did bring more of a fight compared to Shock in the 3-0 match. It looked like this was Shock's worst game yet they have ever played. They looked like they weren't ready for a thing. They just kept dying over and over. They kept backing up more and more. Shock looked confused all over the place. And I know there's a lot of things with Glister people are talking about right now. We'll get to it later. Then you have Houston Outlaws. They brought a fight, but I expected this game to be a little more closer. The first weekend of Houston versus Dallas Fuel, that was a very close game. Then you have Dallas versus Houston this match, and Dallas's 3-0s, very clean, very fast, just like they did in the Shock game. So fantastic performances from both Dallas and the Florida Mayhem. Moving on to the May Melee, Florida's going against the Shanghai Dragons, and Dallas is going against the Chengdu Hunters. And before I talk about the Melee even more, let's talk about the Shock. What is going on? Is Shock actually bad? Is something wrong with Shock behind the scenes we do not know? Because whenever I stream, people are asking me, why are they not doing this? Why are they not doing that? And I always say, majority of the time before asking questions like that, it is behind the scenes stuff we are not aware of. I talked about FD God coming into the team. I think he's a good replacement, but the bad part about FD God coming into this team is that who is going to be the Shotcaller? And we could see the massive issues of Shock right now not having a Shotcaller. Normally, Shock's issues happen a week or two every start of the season where they're not so good. Then they pick it up the third or fourth week. We're not seeing anything being picked up so far on the Shock. So what is going on? Who's the Shotcaller on Shock? It's definitely not FD God, with how much his mechanics are going into his Lucio play. Definitely not Violet, especially how aggressive he is and how much he needs to focus on everything else. It's either got to be Super or Smurf. That's why they keep rotating in and out depending on the playstyle changes. And maybe it is FD God, but I don't know. I don't believe it because we did not get any word on him being a Shotcaller on the Paris Eternal. But it's got to be either Super or F Smurf at this point. I think it's Super because Super's been playing almost every game compared to last year where he didn't play that many games as much. But yes, we're in somewhat of a Ryan meta where we need to switch on the fly, and Super can do that, where he's known for his Ryan and can switch on the fly. So I think that's another big reason why Super's in a little bit more, because he can play the Ryan, and also he may be the main Shotcaller. And when Super is in, they look a little bit more sorted out. I mean, when Super was in against the Dallas Field, they still got rolled no matter what. Absolutely. But there's got to be an issue here. I think if Shock finds out who their Shotcaller is, he needs to practice that a little bit more. I think Shock could look a little bit better. But that is where the big L came in for the Shock, losing Moth to the Los Angeles Gladiators. And now LA Gladiators is kind of using Moth a little bit more now, and they're looking a tiny bit better because they now have that top tier Shotcaller on their team. And that was the big L of Shock, losing Moth. And hopefully they get everything sorted out later. But right now, I'm not seeing any improvement for the Shock from week 1 till now. So hopefully things happen to the Shock a little bit more. They'll have some downtime with their break in the May Melee till the next tournament. So maybe they'll get things sorted out. Now let's talk a little bit of Glister. What's happening with Glister? Is there stuff happening behind the scenes we not know of? Is he getting traded to a different team? There is a rumor about that right now. Because look, Violet's playing McCree. It was decent the first weekend. It was surprising. It did their thing. Every team's prepared for it now, so you can't keep running Violet on McCree. And where's Glister? I had a feeling Glister was not going to play that much or play that well in Shock, but I expect him to at least start on these Kree maps where Violet's playing the Kree instead. But that's got to be something behind the scenes. I can't give you a full, definite answer on why Glister's not playing. The only answers I give when people ask me that question on stream is that it could be a playstyle difference. It could be that he doesn't want to play Kree, or it could be that he's being traded to a team, or there's behind the scenes internal stuff with Glister and the rest of the team. Now, a lot of people, including myself, want to see Glister go to the Dallas Fuel. Dallas Fuel is still, suffering without a hit scan player for future metas in the future. With like Widow or McCree, they're still suffering from that. They need the hit scan player. I mean, Sparkle's fantastic on the Tracer, the Reaper, and that's it. So I think we do need to see Glister go to this team, and I think it'd be fantastic for the Dallas Fuel. But who knows what is going behind the scenes though. Now let's talk about the May Melee for a second. I will do my prediction videos potentially. We only have 2 games to really predict off of right now, and then we could try and use our big brains to look into the future, what happens next. But the 2 games is the Shanghai Dragons versus the Florida Mayhem, and the Dallas Fuel versus the Chengdu Hunters. These are going to be crazy games. I'm starting to believe a little bit more that Florida will win against the Shanghai Dragons after I watched a few more of their VODs these past couple of days. So I'm kind of conflicted on how Shanghai will perform. I think Florida Mayhem will perform a little bit better. They've played with Fate. They know how Fate plays. They can execute on that. And I think Florida could absolutely win against the Shanghai Dragons. I'm going to bet on that. But knowing Shanghai, they sometimes pop off in playoffs, so I wouldn't be surprised if Shanghai comes through. Down to the Dallas Fuel versus the Chengdu Hunters match. This one's going to be interesting. We have 2 teams that play very different compositions, where Jinmu can play the Pharah, and Dallas Fuel does not have a counter to that. And that would be a huge issue for them. But one thing I always say on stream is that Dallas Fuel can play very, very fast, ignore the Pharah and push into the enemy team and get rid of everyone there. And just all they have to do is play fast and ignore the Pharah sometimes and go in. But anything can happen. They can play Sombra, they can play Tracer, they can play Echo, so they can have a Pharah versus Echo composition thing going on there. So it's going to be a fun match no matter what. It may be close. I don't care who wins at the end of the day. If I want Chengdu to honestly win May Melee, what a turnaround that would be for the Hunters. But I do think at the time right now, Dallas Fuel is argued to be the best team in NA right now, and Chengdu Hunters is argued to probably be the best team in APAC right now as well. So it's going to be a crazy match, and I'm very excited to see how it goes on later on. If it turns out to be Florida versus Dallas, that's going to be a crazy game. It's going to be a fantastic weekend for the May Melee, and then we're going to have a break for the next tournament, and I'm going to be excited for it. Anyways, that's going to be it for me. If you guys want to stay more in tune to Overwatch League news and Overwatch League stuff in general, don't forget to subscribe down below. Also, don't forget to join my Discord down below as well, and don't forget to follow my Twitter and my Twitch, and don't forget to hit that bell, and don't forget to leave a like, comment, and subscribe down below, and I'll see you guys on the next one.